Hello, South Pacific Alliance family. It is good to be able to share with you again. In Ephesians chapter 5, you're well aware, starting in verse 22 and through the end of the chapter, of the challenge. It's a message to husbands and wives, and yet what is often lost there is the whole message of the church. I want to just briefly kind of draw your attention to that passage and encourage you to read it and watch how often Paul refers to the church and the mystery of the church and the uniqueness of the church. What I find fascinating is the relationship between husband and wife exemplifies or models what it can be between Christ and the church. Christ, who gave himself up for the bride, who sacrifices and invests to purify, sanctify, set her apart, and make this beautiful relationship, is so true of what that church should be. Just like a bride and a groom, where a groom cares for his wife, his bride, invests in her, develops her, and draws her out, and really there's this beautiful work of the grace that he extends. It is the imagery of the church. And then he flips that, where the servant groom doesn't push, force, or make his way known to the bride, the church, but he waits lovingly and patiently for the bride to extend this invitation as he woos, and her response to woo and draw him in. That intimacy lands as he serves and as the bride invites into that relationship. So here's my question in the short amount of time that we have to look at that. What are you doing as the bride of Christ to woo him into your church? Like husband and wife, it's easy to get into a real work pattern and a routine where the husband does his thing and the wife does her thing, and they're in the same house, but they kind of like live out these two tracks that are parallel. And it's not that they're not husband and wife, but there isn't really the intimacy. And I think churches can fall into that track. We learn how to do church, we walk through the routine, we do the things the church does. And Christ is there, and he's on a parallel track, just longing to be invited in. What are you doing to invite Christ into the intimacy of the church? Prayer is the absolute core of where that goes. What are you doing to initiate and prioritize prayer within your body? Last month, we had our retreat gatherings. We had one in Santa Ana for the west side and Wickenburg for the east side. And in both, they were very uniquely different, and yet we spent time together in prayer. That time is where we bond together, where we love together, we care together, we share together, we express our cares, our concerns, our burdens, we pray for one another. And there's nothing more uniquely powerful than when we pray together. It's such a beautiful thing. On the west side, we were gathered in networks around our tables, and we began to have this relationship with each other where we could share together the struggles, the victories, and pray together. The east side, it's a smaller group, and yet we were able to come together as a whole group and do the same thing, where we were able to pray specifically for students, for specific church plants, for specific ethnic ministries. It was such a beautiful time. Probably the most touching time was when we were praying for the children of the pastors. It grieves my heart on how many kids of people in ministry have such a life of amok. It shouldn't be that way, but it is that way. The enemy is real. He is a deceiver. And prayer is what intercedes. Prayer is what we need. Praying for each other. We're not to grieve all alone, but we're to be in prayer for one another. And so I want to really encourage you this time to really say, church, let's go forward in prayer, sacrificial prayer, seeking the Lord with an expectation that he loves you, that he cares about you, that he is the head of the church and his body, that he will breathe life, health, wholeness, and restoration into those who seek him. It's his promise. It's in the word. Seek him. Why? We are better together, especially when we pray. To God be the glory. May he continue to breathe life into you and the ministry that you lead.